Liar, unfortunately, Golfaning in Aus. Ophilis ultimately disastrous. Manipulator of fragile psyches and unsuspecting nurses. Wouldn't you agree? Oncris looked piantly. Julian, wiping a blob of cerulean from his nose with his forearm, looked at Eva, a new respect dawning in his eyes. Her unwavering professionalism, her profound capacity for logical deduction, even amidst such absurd chaos, was deeply impressive. Ondales. Eva. Mod fear, my theatrical proclivities and my deep-seated aversion to financial insecurity led me down a rather tortuous path of deception. One that has, quite literally, left paint on all involved, and rather a lot of it. You, my dear Onabin Hebis, possess a formidable capacity for truth, even when it's utterly inconvenient, and a remarkably quick wit, even under duress, for which, Maud, am immensely grateful. It saved me, Maud believe, from further embarrassing exposures. My to ofte, lilies. White, Frost. Her tiny white kitten, still, purring contentedly in her arms, walked over to Julian, a gentle, knowing smile on her face. Her innate innocence, untainted by the complex web of adult deceptions, had somehow cut straight through to the truth. On Boridate, darling. Motka no eve kep splattered sense now. Motka no eve kep, deep down, that you wouldn't really be hiding a woman when from Professor Bloom, under false pretenses, just for personal gain. That is just not you. Too dramatic, yes, but honorable. Continually in attack. Julian quite traumatized. The compliment, almost as shocking as the earlier paint attack. Precise. Well, darling Lily, that was the entire point. For Professor Bloomer's, shall we say, traditional sensibilities regarding cohabitation. Mot mean, my dear, if he knew the absolute truth, that Mot am, in fact, a heterosexual male living with two beautiful single women. Our apartment, our haven would be lost. My culinary dreams, darling, would be dashed upon the cruel rocks of unaffordable Coralton Bay rent. Moaning again. He suddenly gasped, remembering the entire fragile ecosystem of their living arrangement. Professor Bloom, my dear professor, you understand, don't you? The profound necessities of urban living, the prohibitive cost of beachfront property, the very spirit of communal harmony. Professor, ways traumatized, who had been entire unraveling from the doorway. His monocle gleaming, now stepped forward, a strange thoughtful expression on his face, as if contemplating a newly discovered rare specimen of human behavior. Deceit, pay, quite traumatized. Meticulous, why paint, splattered a paint, large, brightly colored handkerchief that seemed to belong to a circus clown. Vinicle, Madame Azure. Dr. Reed, Mott have indeed heard the whole story, as dear Lily so succinctly put it. And Mott must confess it has been an education. A rather vibrant, paint-splattered, and profoundly illuminating education, or logical treatise. Mott understand the complexities of human relationships, Monsieur Periwinkle, and the peculiar necessities that sometimes drive us to such elaborate deceptions. Mott had my suspicions, of course, Monsieur Periwinkle. Penchant? Your penchant? For overly dramatic floral arrangements, inly fistes, to Penelope, to predented, Finchleysley. Your fervent of sisterly affection towards your roommates, but Mott chose, for the sake of scientific observation and general intrigue, to embrace the narrative you presented. For the sake of apartment harmony, wink in Tromad Balue, Nesedy so eloquently stated, as you'd for the sheer entertainment value. My weekly bingo nights have been quite dull of late. Unan. He paused, his gaze sweeping over the paint-splattered room, the contrite faces, the air heavy with recent confessions. He continued, a flicker of his usual rigid adherence to rules returning. His voice, adopting a more formal, academic tone. My lease agreements, Monsieur Periwinkle, are quite specific. And they do, in fact, these cohabitation arrangements that deviate from the stipulate family unit clause, especially from the stipulate involving individuals of differing romantic inclinations. It all rather quaint, you understand, but one must maintain a certain level of administrative rigor. Wesson traumatized and sank, all hope draining from him. His theatrical lamentations were justified. This was it, eviction, financial ruin, a life spent cooking lukewarm gruel in some dingy inland establishment, far from the therapeutic crash of the waves. Sending a glance, their faces and etched with a shared despair. Lily clutched her kitten tighter, sensing the profound shift in the atmosphere. Con las Nunikubi, again, Professor Bloom, however, a subtle smile playing on his lips, suddenly snapped his fingers with a dramatic flourish. Onquil. Of course, Monsieur Periwinkle, we modified the terms of the lease. A small, mutually beneficial adjustment, if you will. A modernizing amendment. Given that Madame Azure no longer wishes to pursue her dance career, an admirable decision, my dear. Gwiti Philby. He sent, him in Fiebit you fendor traumatized. Your firm, qua tile, then the stage, though your grace remains unimpeachable. And Dr. Reed, our esteemed medical professional, has expressed a keen desire for continued residency. Here, perhaps, a new arrangement is in order. A triumvirate, omitantly, if you will. A harmonious balance of culinary artistry, floral ingenuity, and medical expertise, all operating under the convenient, new revised definition of family unit. And quite officially, commemorated. A very modern family unit indeed. A fascinating sociological experiment for my continuing research. Poetry, in Jonacle, monocle. Once more, a triumphant gleam in his eye, clearly enjoying his moment in the spotlight. Obi, Motmet, always open to creative solutions, you understand, especially when they ensure timely, raw and no-te payments. Your curiosity of the Azure Coast lofts. Plus, Monsieur Periwinkle, plus, your omelets are quite simply divine, on the fen. Shrimp, if Motmet not mistaken, smells utterly exquisite. Wanadai, Tentleys. Julian stared. Then slowly, a wide beatific grin spread across his paint-splattered face. Relief washed over him in a profound, dizzying wave. He rushed to hug Professor Bloom, nearly knocking off his jaunty nautical cap in his exuberance. Untlis. A legal philosopher of profound insight. Thank you, Professor. Thank you. My culinary future, and indeed our very lives, are forever in your debt, Onaby, Ekin said. Penelope and Eva exchanged looks of immense relief, then, unable to resist, joined a chaotic group hug that smelled faintly of paint, oregano, and lilies. Lily, holding her kitten, beamed, happy for her eccentric family, now officially sanctioned. Instein, Isfer, Rory, Stardust. Rory Dest observing from the hallway, still damp, dejected by the Professor's public denouncement of his scheming, merely grumbled about the injustice of it all before slinking off, defeated. One is too traumatized. Later that evening, after he'd had bippered, looking significantly cleaner and remarkably forgiving. Once his niece's entirely respectable living situation was secured in apartment Bachamlan High, just